Hi everyone, welcome to Listen. Listen.com.co is the website. This is where we teach English through global events. And this podcast episode is climate change, the unfolding crisis. This episode is designed for advanced English learners, so expect nuanced vocabulary, useful idioms, and some high-level phrasal verbs. As always, I'll define key terms and expressions as they appear. Here we go. Defining climate change in today's context. When we talk about climate change in the 21st century, we are referring not only to global warming, that is, the continuous and accelerating rise in Earth's average temperature, but also to the far-reaching consequences this warming has on the global climate system. The current warming trend is largely driven by anthropogenic activity, meaning caused by humans. Anthropogenic activity. Since the Industrial Revolution, the large-scale combustion of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas has released massive quantities of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Let's look at that key vocabulary. Anthropogenic. This means caused by human activity. Combustion is the process of burning something, often to release energy. And greenhouse gases. These are gases such as carbon dioxide and methane that trap heat in the atmosphere. These gases form a sort of thermal blanket around the planet, absorbing the heat that Earth emits, that Earth gives off, after being warmed by the sun. This process intensifies the greenhouse effect, causing the lower atmosphere to retain more heat. Carbon dioxide is the most significant of these gases, and it's now reached levels unprecedented in at least 3 million years, a direct result of human-driven emissions. Environmental repercussions, a chain reaction. Climate change is already having profound repercussions on ecosystems and biodiversity. Arid regions are expanding, dry regions are expanding, heat waves, wildfires, and prolonged droughts are occurring with increased frequency and severity. In polar regions, particularly the Arctic, temperature amplification is triggering the melting of glaciers. The thawing of permafrost, this is permanently frozen ground, and the drastic reduction of sea ice. A phrasal verb we could use here, to set off. In this context, this means to trigger, to start, or initiate a chain of events. Rising Arctic temperatures have set off a cascade of environmental changes. The warming atmosphere also fuels more intense storms, erratic rainfall, and weather events that were once considered anomalies, but are now becoming the norm. Species unable to adapt quickly enough to shifting climates are either forced to migrate or face extinction. An idiom here on thin ice. This means in a risky or dangerous situation. Entire ecosystems are on thin ice as rising temperatures push them beyond their limits. And a common saying, the straw that breaks the camel's back. This is the last small burden that causes everything to collapse. As an example, for coral reefs, rising sea temperatures may be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Even if emissions were dramatically reduced today, some consequences, like ocean acidification, thermal expansion, and sea level rise, are irreversible for centuries. Let's look at that key vocabulary. Acidification. This is the process of becoming more acidic, especially in oceans, due to carbon dioxide absorption. Irreversible simply means impossible to reverse or undo. The human cost. Climate change poses existential threats to human health, food security, water availability, and overall economic stability. It exacerbates inequality. It increases inequality. Wealthier nations can buffer themselves. They can shield themselves with technology and infrastructure, while low-income countries bear the brunt of the damage. They are the ones that are really affected. These are the countries that are really affected the most. They bear the brunt of the damage. So a saying here could be, when it rains, it pours. This means when one problem comes, many others follow. In regions already dealing with poverty, climate change means, when it rains, it pours. People are being displaced from their homes due to climate-related disasters, a phenomenon known as climate migration. Extreme heat, failing crops, and water shortages are fueling civil unrest and heightening geopolitical tensions. A phrasal verb here could be to bear down on. This means to put pressure on or threaten. Food shortages are bearing down on communities across the global south. And here's another idiom, a ticking time bomb. This is a problem that will likely become worse if ignored. Unchecked climate change is a ticking time bomb for global stability. The World Health Organization has called climate change the greatest threat to global health in the 21st century. Real-world examples and warning signs. Let's examine what this looks like in the real world. The Bobcat Fire in California in 2020 scorched, burnt over 100,000 acres, intensified by record-breaking heat and drought. Coral bleaching events are happening more frequently due to marine heat waves, and meanwhile, western U.S. states are enduring what scientists are calling the worst mega-drought in over a millennium. 2024 was officially the hottest year ever recorded, with global temperatures 1.6 degrees C above pre-industrial levels. If we continue on our current trajectory, climate tipping points like the irreversible melting of the Greenland ice sheet, may be crossed. Key vocabulary here: trajectory. This is a path or direction something is heading toward. And a tipping point is a critical threshold where a system changes dramatically and irreversibly. A phrasal verb we could use here: to spiral out of control. This means to escalate rapidly and become unmanageable. Once the ice caps begin melting, the effects may spiral out of control. And here's a saying that fits: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In other words, it's better to act now than to fix a disaster later. What's being done and what isn't? Under the Paris Agreement of 2015, countries pledged to keep global warming well below 2 degrees C, aiming ideally for 1.5 degrees C. But current climate promises, if fulfilled, would still lead to warming of around 2.8 degrees C by 2100. To achieve 1.5 degrees C, global emissions must be halved by 2030, and net zero achieved by 2050. A phrasal verb here that's relevant: fall short of, to fail to meet expectations or goals. Many nations continue to fall short of their climate targets. And here's another very common idiom: to kick the can down the road. To delay dealing with a problem. We can't afford to kick the can down the road when it comes to climate action. The road ahead: decarbonization and adaptation. So what does meaningful action look like? Well, first, we need to phase out fossil fuels by ending subsidies and transitioning to clean energy sources: solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear. Electricity from renewable sources can power our vehicles, heat our homes, and drive industrial production without the carbon burden. A very relevant phrasal verb here: to scale up. This means to increase the size or extent of something significantly. We must scale up investment in green technology. We also need to remove CO2 from the atmosphere by reforestation and regenerative agriculture, which captures carbon in soil. And here's a saying to remember: don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. In other words, even imperfect solutions are better than inaction. And finally, as the clock ticks, one last idiom: put your money where your mouth is. You'll hear this a lot. Governments must stop talking and start investing. Put your money where your mouth is. And a closing proverb to reflect on: we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. In conclusion, climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present-day emergency. It's reshaping our ecosystems, threatening our health, and testing our resilience. But we still have time to act if we have the political will, the public support, and collective courage. Thank you for joining me today on listen.com.co. If you found this episode valuable, please share it, subscribe, and explore our other episodes. Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep learning. Bye-bye for now.